I'm delighted to welcome you to the Wednesday's edition of The Front Butters on Sook News TV. I'm Blessing Eichie. This is the show that you like, the show you've been craving for, where critical issues can be handled that will bring about change in every sector and possibly, let's say, every aspect of life, because a society is made up of different parts. You have a family, you have government, which handles governance and policies, and you also have the citizens, the residents, who have their roles to play. All of this aspect that we attend to as we discuss issues on the front burners. My two partners are here with me this morning, Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze and Oyinpreye Krumale. Good morning, gentlemen.
Blessing, good morning. They say the only thing that is constant is change.
Yes, that's true.
And in the last 2 days, I have experienced some change.
Yes, we did experience some change because you were away. And we missed you, the show missed you, but we also hope that you brought some kilishi or whatever is obtainable where you went.
Well, that can be done off camera.
Okay, I'm assured of that now. Pri, how are you doing this morning?
I'm okay. Good morning to you, Blessing. Doc, welcome back. So what's kilishi?
You're Nigerian.
Go and check what's for dictionary.
Should we tell him? I don't think we should
include that.
No.
Maybe the Cambridge University should include that in their dictionary.
You will see the meaning of kilishi.
We don't need to tell him, but I know you understand what that means. All right, so let's get into some interesting stories that have made headlines. One of them have already begun to garner reactions from Nigerians, and that is a story of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, ordering banks to publish information about dormant and unclaimed balances on their websites. The Apex Bank's new guidelines require that banks and some other financial institutions publish on their websites the names of individuals authorized to operate the accounts, the type of account, and the address of the branch where the account is domiciled. Yes, reactions already are beginning to come in regarding that. And one of them that I saw on X, somebody said, is that not people's privacy you want to be exposed on websites? And then another thought in reaction to that is, well, it is also for the benefit of those who have monies in those accounts that have gone domiciled. Perhaps some people have too much of it. They don't even remember what's left in Bank A, Bank B, Bank C. They probably are just operating now with maybe Bank D and the others.
Yeah. I think CBN just simply want to play its role as a regulator who has a responsibility to protect depositors' funds and also to ensure that the environment in which banks operate are all right. But I think publishing the names of account holders on the website of a bank is a breach of the privacy rule. Yeah, because the bank itself has responsibility to keep the information of their depositors secret, not publish it on the space. And I think CBN should be able to find a way to supervise and know which accounts of the banks that are not active, and then probably ask the banks or query the banks why those accounts funds are in there and they are not active. Who are the owners of those funds? At regulatory level, that can be done at the back end. But putting it in the public domain, I don't think is the right thing to do, in my view.
What do you think if the CBN is asking the banks publish the details of these account orders and the balances on the website? What do you think they're expecting to be the follow-up action when people see that they have dormant accounts, or when next of kin of these persons see the names of their relatives as owners of dormant accounts?
Well, CBN, having been saddled with the responsibility or regulatory powers to monitor the activities of commercial banks, I want to say, are in the right standing to demand for such information. And I want to think and begin to look for the reason why the CBN will request for that, apart from the fact that it's their regulatory powers to do that. Some of these funds, we've heard stories even before now. Several times the CBN has been on the neck of commercial banks to publish these details. And that's because these dormant accounts, maybe some persons are late and maybe there was no proper documentation for the next of kin of these individuals to lay claims of this fund. And the funds have been lying dormant in the bank accounts. And not one, not two, not three, several. And some other times it could be that the persons, maybe they are not dead, but for reasons unknown, those accounts just lie dormant for more than 1 year. The law says an account that lies dormant for more than 1 year, because it's somehow impossible when someone is alive and for more than 1 year you've not visited, either you're trying to do a transaction into the account or you are withdrawing from the account or maybe referencing the account in any form of transaction. Those accounts and those monies inside those bank accounts, there have been allegations that some of the commercial banks use those monies. They take over those money. There was a time where some bank chief executives were being tracked by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and some of those bank executives were even sacked in the process, and their banks were taken over in the process. This could be some of the reasons, and to shine the eagle eye to make sure that some of these bank executives are put on their toes. The CBN is going ahead with that and publishing the accounts in the association website. I don't want to think it's something that the CBN is going overboard or trying to expose people's details, even though one of the excuses that was given by the requirement as the CBN was that they were equally paying attention to the National Data Protection Act. So I don't think they're really going overboard.
Yes, I was just going to bring to our attention CBN's response to that, because I guess they might have tried to cover all areas knowing what the reactions would be. So according to the CBN, in response to the issue of possible breach of Nigerian Data Protection Act 2023, so the bank says that Section 25B of the Nigerian Data Protection Act permits justifiable deviations from the general principles of the Act, and also Section 72 of the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act mandates the Central Bank of Nigeria to issue guidelines on the administration of unclaimed funds in banks and other financial institutions. And then secondly, they said information to be published on banks' websites as well as the association's websites where applicable shall include the name of the account, the type of account, the name of the bank, and the branch where the account is domiciled only.
Well, I think I'm not a lawyer and I don't even want to get into those sections of the Constitution. I think if these are subjected to legal opinions, it will differ. The fact that, of course, the law says that you can set regulations on funds that are unclaimed does not empower you to breach the privacy and the confidentiality of a customer and his client.
What about the part of the Act that allows deviation from the general guidelines?
It does not specifically say that you have to put people's data, which is a dealing between a customer and the bank, on a public space. There's nothing in that law that says that. And I think that's where we need to be a little bit circumspect in terms of how we'll interpret rules. You see, like I said, they are the regulator. And the law empowered them to be able to see into the books of the banks as regulators. And then be able to ask very definite questions on some suspicious account. And you know, I understand their own nightmare, but we also must look at the environment in which regulation takes place. Yeah, recently there were these thing moving on the online of people complaining that banks were opening account for them without their notice. And some specific banks were mentioned. And they said, customers said, I never opened the account. But it's like bank are opening sub-accounts for some client, and the clients may not even know that those accounts exist. Now, if that's what we want to check, there's a way, because the law that also establishes the Financial Crimes Commission also empowered them to investigate some of all these accounts. So where there are suspicion, I think it's the duty of the CBN to call the attention of those who are empowered by the law to look into the data and then probe these banks and see if they are violating certain provisions of the acts that enable them to operate. That's my feeling. But when you say go and publish the names and the branch and all these things, you also be aware that the environment in which we operate, where of course you see people can take undue advantage of things, is something that we have to find a way to also avoid. And then of course you find people taking data from online to make spurious claims and the rest of it. But I think if you want to correct a situation, you don't create more challenges for the situation. That's my feeling. And I think it's easier to come very clean and look at the banks and look at the data. And I think with AI today, a lot can be made very simple. So we can find forensic experts who can use and apply a software to be able to determine where these accounts are, what are the details, and then the CBN can appropriately query these accounts. And if the banks or the domiciled banks have no reasons to keep those accounts there, then of course the money can be forfeited to the system. But asking them to go publish the data, I think is a breach of
Doc, your submission is valid, but let's also look at some issues. Now, you rounded off by saying that after querying the accounts and if the banks where these monies are domiciled do not have reasons to keep the money can be forfeited to the system. Let's look at that. Should the monies be forfeited? These are dormant accounts. Could there be reasons why the accounts are dormant, aside from the instance that you gave, where some banks have opened sub-accounts for customers without your knowledge? Could it be that some of these account owners, maybe some of them are no longer within the country, and given the type of account that they operate, they've not been able to maybe have access to them and operate them from wherever they are, or some are diseased? What could be the reasons why there are so much dormant accounts?
Okay, so for me, I think even before now, there was a time I experienced something about dormant account. It's not that there was money in there. There was no money in there, so I wasn't even using the account. And the other time I felt, okay, I had some money, I needed to just save it somewhere. You know, the kind of money you kept somewhere, you're like, I'm not going to touch this money. So you want to go and keep it in one account somewhere that you rarely think about. When I went there and wanted to make the deposit, they didn't tell me anything. I deposited the money. When I wanted to come and withdraw the money, I was told, oh, your account is dormant, you have to reactivate.
But I thought that once you make a transaction on an account, where it was dormant before,
no, it was during those times when you walk to the bank, you carry a teller, carry the money and you sign. So I was told I need to come and reactivate. Then I now went there and passed through the hurdles and all the processes of reactivating the account. But these days, technology has afforded us the opportunity and the privilege to operate an account. You could be in the United States and operate a Nigerian account because of technology, by using the bank apps and make transactions. You can be here, and I think you can also do that over there, where you make transactions. So sometimes also, for the sake of transparency, where the CBN could be coming out just to be a check on the banks, but it will have a spiral or a spillover effect as a way of checking some corrupt individuals. That may not be the intention of the CBN. Some politicians who probably must have occupied public offices and in their dealings in those public offices, they must have, taken away money that was meant for the use of the public, misappropriated the money, or transferred that money into an account that is that is their personal account, or probably used by a third party whom they know, their cousin, their brothers, or their sisters, or their wife's sisters, or even their maid. And they could keep the money in that bank account and just leave the money there and run the normal business of the government, or do their own personal business and just leave that money there and waiting for 3, 4 years or 5 years, as the case may be, so that they can leave the office of the office of government or governance. Then they can have access to that money. There have been cases like that, and in order to prevent such cases from continuing to happen on the system, maybe this action of the CBN is coming to the fore, whereby if these accounts are made known to the public, and if a government official who is currently occupying position, or who had occupied position in times past, is having money stashed somewhere in some account that has not been transacted in that account for a year or above a year, and is being brought to public domain, I think if we're using that, it could be another way that the government will be fighting corruption unknowingly. So if those accounts are brought to the fore, it will left for the CBN to make queries, and after querying, then bring in the ICPC and the EFCC into the matter to make sure they beam lights on it, and to know the source of that money, who owns that money, what's it meant for, where is it going, for what purpose it has been in that account without being used for any reason.
Yeah, but look at it.
But for the downside of it, which could be that it's a breach of data privacy, do you think there are benefits that can come from publishing the names of these account owners on their websites to the owners of these monies?
Most of the time, we don't need to reinvent the wheels. SEC has done something very beautiful in that regard. With people who hold securities. There's a website that SEC maintains, as they call it, Unclaimed Dividend Site.
Unclaimed dividend
site. Because a lot of people had investment that they didn't even know they had. Your sister is selling an IPO for a business, and he wants you to buy because he has a target to meet, and then you have to support that person. You buy the stock, you don't even remember you had bought. Same with banking, because we know the era of marketing in the last few years, where, of course, for you to remain in the service of the bank, you must have to bring in deposits to a certain level. And then, of course, you're looking for all your uncles who can help you put money. And so many people have multiplicity of accounts, and they really not realize that something has happened, because it's not their regular banking operations. Maybe you just want to help a cousin or a nephew or a niece who is working somewhere, and you just, because of that person, open that account and put money there. And because it's not your regular account, you may not even be going there. Reason that you could have accounts that are dormant. And then, of course, there are people too who open accounts and they have not told their parents, their spouses or children that they have such accounts. And for people who can keep things, it's difficult that now they have passed. Then, of course, those accounts are not operated because the children or siblings are not aware that those things are there. So just like SEC had done was the fact that there's a space for search. And you open and type your name in there. If you have unclaimed dividends, it will just show which stock you are holding and which company it is. But details will not be given to you beyond your name and the registrar that is holding your resource. And I think this is what CBN should emulate. That on their own portal, all donors' accounts can actually be uploaded, and then people can be given the privilege to go check the portal by typing in their name or their dead parent's name. And if there are such accounts that are not clear, then they'll be able to see them. From regulatory perspective, CBN could. Okay. But mandating the banks to publish
the names
on the back, I think, is a little beyond regulatory.
But the CBN is a species of the law. It was established by an act of parliament. And if it was established by the act of parliament, it's true that going through the procedures and the regulatory powers that has been given to the Central Bank of Nigeria, that's why that clause is there, that there will be a time where the CBN can deviate. I don't want to even call it deviation because it's still the powers within the confines of the law that they can take this specific action of publishing names. Probably the crafters of the law and those who envisaged, those who actually put pen to paper, not that particular clause there, were actually envisaging an act of maybe taming corruption or corrupt acts, or to dig up dirty funds that have been kept somewhere, unwholesome funds, to bring it to public fore, so that just the way the government, the CBN wants to do in the case of the bank directors, that it will be forfeited. Maybe this might be forfeited as well. However, I think it's also dependent on banks, or maybe for those who may genuinely have funds in some of these banks that they've not operated for years now. Maybe this could be the time where they should be writing to their banks that, look, we know this is on, but we've come to reactivate our bank accounts, or maybe through a lawyer they can write to some of their banks not to publish their details and give valid reasons that can hold water if the CBN takes the case to court, because that bank did not actually make available those details of those accounts that were inactive.
Well, let's get to see what will happen even though the CBN is giving the directive to banks that they should publish the details of dormant accounts and unclaimed balances within their custody. So let's see what happens if these reactions from the general public would make the CBN reverse that directive, or it's going to happen. Let's see what the follow-up action would be. Are we going to see people come forward to claim those accounts, to reactivate those accounts? Will the bank become better for it, or it's just to ensure transparency so the CBN knows exactly what's going on with the deposit banks? So we'll bring you updates on that as developments around that emerge.